Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Eric Bosman. I'm an urban designer and planner with Kimley-Horn Associates, and we're grateful to the Partnership for Tomorrow in the City of Greer for giving us this opportunity to help facilitate your 15-year update to the Greer Community Master Plan. We're excited that you came out to spend a little time with us this evening. Hopefully in the first half hour or so you had a chance to walk around the room and see some of the concept areas that we're working on this evening. What we want to do with the presentation is sort of put that within the context of the overall plan, tell you a little bit about the Greer Community Master Plan and the steps that follow this evening as we continue to seek community input and feedback on the proper steps for the future of the City of Greer. I do want to recognize Ed Driggers, our City Administrator, who's sitting in the back as well, several of our staff members. Also, do we have any of our committee members or members of the Partnership for Tomorrow that are here? A whole bunch of them were here this afternoon. Thank you all for being here. This is exciting. We had about 50 folks that were here this afternoon. They already got their dose. It's exactly the same meeting that we're having this evening, so we're grateful for those of you that could come out and join us tonight. And I want to explain the Partnership for Tomorrow in the City of Greer completed the first Greer Community Master Plan in 1999. That plan was a 15-year vision for how to continue to grow and enhance the City of Greer from the year 1999 to 2014. And so here we are 15 years later, and that Greer Community Master Plan has led to improvements in the downtown area. It's led to a marketing plan for Greer Station, which has helped you bring in some quality restaurants and enhance the vitality and sustainability of downtown. It's resulted in your new City Hall, City Park, the revitalization of this building as a community anchor, as well as a number of other improvements around town. And what the Partnership for Tomorrow has done over the last year is looked at those accomplishments of the last 15 years and now decided to do this 15-year update to again look forward and ask the community, where should we go over the next 15 years? What should be the community's priorities? How do we continue to grow smartly and continue to preserve the things about the community that we enjoy best? And so the Greer Community Master Plan is really meant to do these things. It's a growth management plan. We know that growth is coming. I'll show you a slide in a minute that sort of shows the level of that anticipated growth. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we do that intelligently in a way that maintains stability, that improves the physical condition of the city, and provides for the economic well-being of the city as a whole and for its citizens, and at the same time makes Greer a more livable, sustainable community of choice between now and 2030. This is our, as I said this morning, this is our overly complicated process chart. So we have completed the first two steps in the process, our visioning, and if you were here in July, we had an outreach meeting in July where we had 75 people that came out and gave us their ideas in terms of goals and priorities for the Greer Community Master Plan and where they'd like to see the community go. We've worked on some scenario planning. What are the possibilities? We've completed an early market study because we want to make sure that this plan is based in reality and that we don't come up with visions that are not completable or unsustainable, but come up with a community-based plan that we know can be built and put into action over the next 15 years. And so where we are to now is this combination of steps 3 and 4. Step 3, the framework plan, is looking at the city as a whole. Everything from the lake down to I-85 and south of the lake, looking at transportation, land use and development, water, sewer, infrastructure, parks and open space. What's sort of the big idea and the big strategies that will guide the city as a whole? And at the same time, what we're focused on this evening are more detailed particular strategies for areas that have the greatest potential for growth, change, and enhancement over the next 15 years. And so those are the areas that are at the tables tonight. Downtown, Greer Station in the Central Business District, our 2 interchanges with I-85 at South Carolina 14 and at Highway 101, the Wade-Hampton corridor, specifically at Buncombe Road, as well as some other opportunity areas around Wade-Hampton. So that's what we're looking at today, is the more detailed concept plans. We'll actually be coming back on November 18th at this same time in the evening to talk more about how the framework plan and the input that you give us tonight on the concept plans get blended together to provide a more complete picture for the future of Greer. And then this isn't just a bunch of pretty pictures that get put in a book at the end of the day. This plan is anchored with a diagnostic inventory and an action plan. What are the policies, the regulations, and the incentives that either need to be put into place or change in order to help these visions become a reality over the next 15 years? Now, I've mentioned this is a community-based master plan. And what we mean by that is throughout this planning process, we're coming out to you, the community, as well as to local property owners and business owners to allow your input to guide this planning process. At the end of the day, several of us are consultants from out of town, and this is not meant to be our plan or what we think you should do with Greer. This is a facilitated process so that we can determine where you, the community, want to go and how we can best implement it. And we've received that feedback and input through a variety of mechanisms. We have a project oversight committee that meets on roughly a monthly basis that we're keeping updated on the plan. We have theme committees that are paying very close attention to things like transportation, parks and open space, arts and culture, and how we're addressing that from a citywide standpoint. We had a MetroQuest survey, which is an online survey. We had almost 500 citizens of Greer that participated in that online survey at the end of the summer into the first of the fall, and we'll show you a little bit about what we learned from that survey. We had our visioning workshop. I'm not sure that date's exactly correct. I'm confused now as to whether we're June or July, but whatever the last time several of you were here. And then we have our design workshop tonight. We'll come back in November for a community workshop, again, to look at big picture and small picture. And then the plan will be rolled out in the spring of 2015. So all those different opportunities to give us input. And again, the study area is not only the city limits of Greer, which are these areas in gray. And yes, it is sort of that odd shape that connects all those little pieces together, including Lake Robinson. But we're not just focused on the city limits. We know that annexation has occurred over in the past, that people will likely ask for annexation again, or there will be opportunities for annexation because of the infrastructure and services that the city provide. And whether or not all of these areas come into the city of Greer, development and redevelopment in those areas absolutely impacts the city of Greer, its future development, its market, and our transportation in the area. So we're not just looking, while the city limits of Greer are the most important in terms of what we're looking at, we're also looking at a wider radius, everything from the top of Lake Robinson down to a little ways south of I-85, at least down to the Abner Creek area. Now, I mentioned all those community inputs that we've had to date. All of those are summarized in a document called the Community Assessment. It's on the project website, so if you have some light reading time or need to go to bed more quickly at night, I highly recommend pulling that document off and going through our explanation of our process, what we've done to date, and the feedback that we've received. But here are a few sort of summary items from that community assessment. We've completed a demographic and market study of the city of Greer. And if you look back from 2000 to 2014, the city has grown at about 2.4% annually. Now, that's a very strong growth rate. What we've typically seen in the Southeast over the last couple of years is anywhere from 1% to 2% in annual growth. And frankly, this is twice as fast as the upstate region. The upstate has grown at about 1.2% annually between 2000, 2012, 2013, 2014. There was not a lot of growth between 2010 and 2014. And as we project forward and look at the next 15 years, anywhere around that same growth rate. And we're not just basing it on that growth rate, but we've done projections moving forward, and it's back in the high 1 points up to almost 2%. That gives us a capacity or an expectation that there might be another 20 to 22,000 people that look to move to the city of Greer over the next 15 years. Potential for another almost 8,500 households and a little short of 8,000 jobs. Now, that's the market potential just based on trend lines and extrapolation and expected growth. That doesn't include major game changers like major developments or new employers that might come to town. That's just sort of the normalized trend rate. What you've done is you've built a great community here that people are very attracted to because you have a sense of history, a sense of pride, a sense of place to Greer. And that's what people who are moving to the area are often looking for and why these numbers are as advantageous as they are. Community input has been a cornerstone of this. Again, here's that MetroQuest online survey. Almost 500 individuals who participated in the survey, over 13,000 inputs and data points that were provided to the team through that online survey. whether that was priorities or mapping points or questions that were answered, a significant amount of data, and over 319 comments that Jonathan and the rest of the team had to read and go through and see where those points of consensus and points of disagreement were. We also have our theme committee that involves over 40 individuals, and we had our visioning workshop this summer where we had over 70 residents, property owners, and business owners of Greer that participated. So to date, almost 600 people that have participated in this process and giving us input, in addition to some of you who are new faces tonight. What we've learned through that input is that there are a number of important priorities for us to focus on for the next 15 years. Everything from economic to vitality to continuing to enhance and grow the downtown area, education and workforce development, and improving housing in and around the area, as well as some secondary themes like branding and marketing the city of Greer, improving bicycle and pedestrian connectivity as well as open spaces, improving transportation routes and options, and including historic preservation. Looking at some of the historic buildings that have been preserved and being very thoughtful and strategic about how we maintain our sense of history here in Greer, something that's very important to the citizenry, but something in many other towns across the Southeast that we've lost over the last 20 years. In addition to those data points, we also did a series of mapping exercises, both at the workshop where we gave people colored dots and on the online survey where people could use our mapping tool to identify areas where they'd like to see things change or where they'd like to see more housing, more jobs, more employment, things that are different in the future. And what you'll notice is when we put all those data points on a single map, you see these groupings of dots where people saw opportunities for enhancement. And it's no surprise and no coincidence that those are the areas that we focused on tonight in those concept plans. Greer Station in the CBD, Wade Hampton Boulevard, particularly the area around Buncombe, some areas north of the airport, as well as South Carolina 14 at I-85 and Highway 101 at I-85. So this was a direct path from our citizen input to review by our steering committee to those areas that were identified as concept areas for focus tonight. And as you've seen some of the concepts and the doodles that are on these maps, they also reflect the public input in terms of where the public thought new housing should be located, as well as new jobs and employment, or opportunities for new parks and open space. As we look at these future possibilities, these are sort of the community-based priorities that we've been given based on the input to date. And some of these are physical pieces, like creating healthy neighborhoods, promoting and enhancing downtown, improving transportation, and promoting the environment and protecting environmentally sensitive areas. Those are things that we can do through the physical planning process. There are also things like growing the local economy. And so we're testing these various concept plans to make sure that they're both viable from a market standpoint, but also help grow the local economy and opportunities. And again, enhancing things that are uniquely Greer. Preserving those things about the community that are favored and important, but also preserving our sense of history, which is so important. Now, this is not just a qualitative process where we come out and ask you, what do you want? And we draw it on a piece of paper and we make it look pretty and we hand it to the city. There's also a lot of qualitative data and planning expertise that goes into a process like this. One of those inputs is a computer model. We're using a software called Community Viz to model different growth scenarios over the next 15 years and then test those against those priorities and criteria that the public and the city have given us. So this is just a snapshot of 4 different scenarios. And what we've done with the computer model is we've modeled sort of your current trajectory, how the city has grown over the last 15 years, and if we just take that same growth pattern and move it forward, what are some of the wins and losses or the opportunities and challenges that come to the city based on that continued trend line of growth? And then there are 3 other models that are sort of slight tweaks. What if we thought about growing a little bit differently over the next 15 years? What might that look like? So we've looked at scenarios that start to focus on more clustered growth in the downtown area and our 2 interchanges. We've looked on models that push some of that growth more outward into the edges of the community, which would require some annexation and some other strategies. And then we've looked at a multiple center, which does a little bit of both. Enhances the downtown and the exits along I-85, but also is very strategic about some smaller clustered community centers and activity nodes within other parts of the community. And what we've done so far is we've started to put those through that same criteria of healthy neighborhoods, promoting downtown, enhancing transportation, protecting the environment, and growing the economy. And you might not be surprised, we won't go into all the details tonight, we'll save this for November, but you won't be surprised to know that some of those growth strategies work better than others. None of them is perfect, none of them are the panacea, they're not ideal, but each of them has their strengths and weaknesses as we measure those growth scenarios against our future goals. And ultimately, the right answer is not necessarily what a computer model tells us. Ultimately, the right answer is how do we take that quantitative data from the model and bump that up against what the community feels and sees and where you want to go. And so we put sort of that heart and soul that you provide into the process along with what the computer helps us understand to help make the best, most informed choices for the right growth scenario for the city of Greer over the next 15 years. So that brings us to where we are tonight. These concept plan areas, again, are sort of the 4 areas in town based on community input that we have the most potential for change and growth and development over the next 15 years. So we're focused tonight on Greer Station in the Central Business District, Wade Hampton at Buncombe, South 14 at I-85, and 101 at I-85. And just to quickly tell you what's each of the tables, there are 3 different maps. First of all is just an aerial base map to help you get your bearings. And if we've done a good job throughout the day, you'll be able to easily find your landmarks like the depot downtown and the Lowe's on Wade Hampton to sort of get your bearings. But then we've also developed what we call a susceptibility to change analysis. Now, this is a little bit subjective. There is some data behind it, but this isn't an absolutely perfect exercise or analysis. But what it seeks to do is color code properties in each of these concept areas based on how likely they are to change over the next 10 to 15 years. The properties that are darkest, that are brown, are generally properties that are either vacant or undeveloped or for sale or have current development proposals or past development proposals where we know that they're pretty easy targets for development. The orange properties are those that are have a medium susceptibility to change. The yellow have a lower susceptibility to change. And those that are not color-coded, particularly in and around the downtown area, are stable single-family neighborhoods where we would not anticipate change over the next 15 years. So what's not necessarily important to us is the color of every little individual parcel. What we seek to do through this exercise is really understand where there are big sort of clusters of color. Because if we can do this as planners and architects and designers, you can absolutely be sure that the development community can see this and see where there are opportunities to do something different. And part of this planning effort is about clarifying your community vision so that when the real estate market kicks back in, as it is doing now, and development proposals are brought to the city is able to weigh those development proposals against your vision as a community and can say yes to the right things and maybe not so much to those things that aren't in line with the community vision. So what we really look for are these big clusters of color. And what we've heard from community input so far to date is sort of what I'll go through in this little simple diagram. Particularly related to downtown, folks have told us we've got a great anchor downtown with all the progress that's been made in the main 4 or 5 blocks of downtown, as well as the new City Hall and City Park and here at the Cannon Center. So we've got sort of a great nucleus to work around, but there's continued opportunities for enhancement and development in the downtown area. And even more so, how do we connect these exciting things that are going on in downtown and connect them to sort of the in-town neighborhoods so that people can walk and bicycle more easily to go to dinner in Greer Station or to come to a community event and festival. And on top of that connectivity, how do we recognize that we have a major intersection up at Wade Hampton and Main Street and no possible clue if you're driving from Greenville to Duncan Lime and Welford that downtown Greer is 3 blocks away. So how do we capture some of that opportunity knowing that some of that property is apt to change? And then what do we do to Main Street to make it that more high character, walkable street that you might go from Wade Hampton into downtown and start to tie North Main Street together, as well as take advantage of some of the land opportunities with the old Victor Mill site and the surrounding neighborhood and connect that back into downtown as well. The second focal concept area is Wade Hampton at Buncombe. So this is Wade Hampton. Here's my Lowe's. got a Target around here. We've got South Buncombe and the old Exide battery plant. And again, as you look at the susceptibility to change, there's a lot of opportunity in some of the older commercial areas as well as some of the older industrial properties that are now defunct and closed. And a lot of available property on the south end of Buncombe, as well as some other opportunity areas along Wade Hampton. So what we've heard so far is really focusing on that intersection of Wade Hampton and Buncombe. Not only land use and development issues, but some connectivity and traffic issues in that area as well. How can we improve flow and simply make it a much better place that feels like it belongs in Greer and has a little higher degree of character? Then clearly we've got this big cluster of available redevelopable or developable properties just south on Buncombe Road. And what changes need to be made to Buncombe and to Chick Springs to make this a more inhabitable area that can do more, that can provide more for the city of Greer. Part of the bigger vision as well that's coming out of those growth scenarios is not allowing Wade Hampton to be sort of this continuous corridor of high intensity retail as you move across the city of Greer. Now, you all in Greer have already done a great job with Wade Hampton. It's clear as an outsider coming into the city that the character on Wade Hampton is very different in Greer than to your neighbors to the west and the east. The character changes significantly, the level of development, the signage, the quality of all of it. The bar is raised here in Greer. But how do we take that one step further? And what the growth model is sort of showing us is we may have these opportunities at major intersections that are higher intensity, but then we also need to make sure that we have some lower intensity pulses along Wade Hampton. And so what we're really talking about is rather than a long continuous strip of commercial retail, having more nodes and pulses of development, and then making some changes to Wade Hampton that again improve the connectivity, the character, reduce traffic congestion, and sort of raise the level of design in the bar along Wade Hampton that connect these pulses and centers together. Let's move down to I-85. So the south end of Highway 14, as it crosses over I-85, this is the Pelham Medical Center that really is the anchor for that end of the corridor. So you see the medical center in yellow and now in purple when I throw my overlay on it, and really some pretty massive vacant properties that are on that end. The hospital came online at a time where we were headed into the recession, and so not a lot has happened on these properties to date. But we've really seen the real estate market start to pick up significantly over the last 6, 8, 12 months. We would absolutely expect that absent anything that the city or the county might do, that you're going to see development proposals for these vacant properties over the next couple of years. So again, it's important to have a community vision to weigh those development proposals against. And so we know we have this big opportunity, these big pieces of land along I-85 and between 85 and the medical center. We've got some opportunities to enhance Highway 14. Right now it's a pretty wide open, I don't want to call it low character, but probably not the most attractive roadway in terms of giving you the visual character and the image of what Greer is about. And also this opportunity to connect the commercial retail node that's down at 14 and Pelham, while also continuing to think about those big pieces of vacant land, what they might be in the future, and how they might contribute to the economic vitality of Greer. And then a little bit to the east, if we go up to exit 60, State Route 101 at I-85. So BMW is here today. There is a proposal for a Bass Pro Shop, which you all have known about for quite some months on the north side there. And so that's probably the biggest opportunity, but there's also a lot of sort of logistics, trucking, industrial land on the south side of 85 at South Carolina 101. Now, I don't know that it's a secret, but the reason that many of those logistics and trucking companies are there are close proximity to I-85, but also low property cost in order for them to locate there. If this area continues to evolve because of investment like big players like BMW and Bass Pro Shop, you're going to see property values rise in this area. And at some point, it makes absolute economic sense if the property values rise for some of these logistics, trucking, infrastructure-based folks. As long as they can get proximity to I-85 somewhere else, they'll look for other locations if the price is right to move from here. And that's sort of the natural evolution of real estate. And we would expect it, I don't know about immediately, I don't know what the timeline is, but we would expect that activity to likely happen over the coming years. So again, the idea is, what's our plan and our vision for moving forward? There's certainly an opportunity for more regional retail based on some of the proposals that have been made there today. We know that future residential development is coming in the Abner Creek area. So we have every reason to believe that future residential, where will the neighborhood commercial area, where will the grocery store, where will those neighborhood centers be in the future? They're going to want to be on 101 where the traffic counts and the visibility are high. So what's the right place for that? And then again, how do we connect those together and improve the 101 corridor so that it works better, or at least doesn't work worse from a traffic standpoint, and has the greater character and the environment that befits the city of Greer? And then what do we do about this intersection of Leonard and Zuber and 101, and looking at some of those traffic issues and just some areas that maybe don't look quite as nice as they should today. And then the traffic system's kind of a mess on top of that. So what do we do about all these little roadways and intersections? Because we know in the southeast where we like to drive our automobiles, most of our roads are actually okay. It's our intersections that create our congestion. And no matter how fast we drive along 101, if we hit every red light, we're not going anywhere very fast. So that's sort of what's on the tables. Gives you a little bit of an orientation. And these bubble diagrams that I went through were sort of that 20, 30,000 foot level. And what we're really looking for your input at the tables tonight is how we get to that next level of detail. Building off of those diagrams, and you're also completely welcome to object to those diagrams and tell us we've got it wrong and need to go another direction. But either way, what would you like to see in those areas? What do you think could further enhance the community and its economic vitality? And are there other models and other developments that you've seen in this region or when you've been traveling that are good case studies or models, examples for what you would like to see in these areas? And our task between now and the workshop on November 18th is to go and do a finer level of design and bring those back to you for input in November. Now the plan's not just about these 4 concept areas. It's the city as a whole, and there's also a series of corridors that connect these areas together. And so in addition to the 4 concept plans, when you come back in November, there will also be some strategies to enhance these corridors: Buncombe, 101, 14, various segments of Wade Hampton. And I think what's important to note is there are different colors on different segments because we think the character of those areas is a little bit different. We're not looking for a one-size-fits-all solution, but we're trying to pay very close attention to the character of each part of the city so that we can create a roadway system and a pedestrian network that fits within the existing character. So that gets us to our next steps. We'll be here until about 7 o'clock this evening, or I guess 7:30. So you've got about another hour to come and give us feedback, to ask us questions, to participate in these table exercises tonight. And then when we come back to you on November 18th, we're going to be presenting not just the updates of these concept plans, but also the preferred growth strategy for the city as a whole, some ideas on those strategic corridors that we just talked about, as well as the citywide framework plans related to transportation, parks and open space, water and sewer. So that will be, again, 5:30 to 7:30 on November 18th. For folks that you know, your neighborhoods, friends, colleagues, coworkers who were interested but couldn't get here tonight, all of this information will be at PlanGreer.com. And throughout this process, you're welcome to go back and look at previous presentations. I think this presentation as a video will be on the website soon as well, so you can follow this entire planning process and continue to give us input not only at the public meetings, but also through PlanGreer.com. So that's sort of our overview and introduction. Tells you about what's here tonight, how it fits within the context. Thank you again for taking a little bit of your time tonight to spend with us. Let me pause for a minute and see are there any just general questions about the planning process or what we're doing? Wow, that's twice in a row I've either overwhelmed everybody or answered every single question through a 20-minute presentation. Awesome. So we hope that you will spend a little more time with us this evening. Again, you've heard me say it several times, but it's really important that this is a community-based master plan. A year from now, I will probably be working in another community as a consultant, and the success of this plan really relies on your city leadership and your involvement and your input as citizens into where you want to see the city of Greer go. So we're excited to have this opportunity. Again, we appreciate you spending part of your evening with us. We know you have lots of other things you could be doing, and the weather's been terrific. So thanks for spending some time with us this evening, and we look forward to talking to you a little bit further.